So welcome, Perfect Love. All right, that out of the way, we are going into the time machine tonight, family. We're going forward to the rise, the creeping revolution, the DERGs. You know what I mean? They rise up against Kadamawi Haile Selassie the first, who was so foolish. We are going to discuss it tonight. My guest is someone tonight that I have known over 20 years. I met this brethren while I was a student at Howard University. Brethren is a photo journalist. We go forward. Bingy House days, Washington, D.C. The brethren based out of New York City. Originally from Guyana, and just we are Ethiopian, born in Guyana, domicile in New York City. But it's a brethren that, as a young Ras, I learned a lot about, the military protocol. We used to train 5 in the morning when him come check I, we are trained, we are do yoga, we are do push-ups, all kind of thing. Yeah, man. So we go way forward. So it was only the right thing that we bring him forward, because these are the topics that we reason about behind the scenes. So I wanted to bring it to the family, and I want this to be interactive. And we're going to ask the question, does Jah live physically? I'm going to bring in my own perspective. I want to hear what the item feel in the comments. Do the item feel that Haile Selassie is physically alive, 132, walking up around in a monastery? What do we feel? We're going to talk about it tonight, the mystical, but we're going to keep it factual, and that are the thing when we love. So help I to welcome family, I brethren, Makonnen, welcome.
Yes, greetings. Nice to learn. Salam nachu, dena nachu. Mo ambasa zaim negade Yehuda, Kadamawi, Haile Selassie, Negus Nagas, za Ethiopia. Fraternal salutations. This is a great honor and a privilege. Sincerely appreciate it. Also, I'd like to give thanks to Haile Culture, who is my technical support here. Without the combination of the two of us, this won't be possible.
Just let Haile Culture know him time for interview or come up too. So he need to ready up himself too, because we've been watching his work in Ethiopia. The music, we need a drop from Haile Culture. Only partake people. I don't even start bring the network on this platform. I just want the item know the thing is not normal. All right. We're not going to do our regular format tonight. We're not going to go into the biography of the guests and come up. We're going to jump straight into the fullness. But before we do that, I wanted to just edify the brethren works as a photojournalist. If we can see the first slide. Today, I'm going to make the Lion Pride money work for it today. You're going to see the platform. We upgrade on StreamYard. So we're going to use some of the functionality. Big up yourself, Lion Pride, on Patreon. So this calendar is one of the brethren works. He was one of the premier photojournalists for a lot of the big reggae shows in New York City. Can the idols give us a little bit of fullness on what we're looking at here, King?
Okay, that actually is like a thesis. There's like the whole of the 90s. Most of the artists that were prominent in the 90s, I went to the shows and I took the pictures. But I wanted to show the focus was on the emperor and not on like a personality cult, So that's why you see the emperor is the dominant figure, and every person in there is like giving praise through the word song, which is the songs or the music that they produce. And there's a lot of noted artists there too. But I took all those pictures going to various shows from like 92 to 2000.
Just for those who can't see so well, give us some of the artists that are featured.
Okay, like for instance, you got Born in Spear, you got Luciano, you got Garnic Silk, you got Culture, Capleton, Sizzler, Culture, Steel Pulse, Mighty Diamonds, a host of them. But they're so small that I can't really see them now. But it's a lot of artists there. Even Bunny Wailer. I took that picture at Madison Square Garden.
I just wanted the eye to say that so that we can establish that the eye did this photojournalism on the highest level when it come on to I singers and players of instruments. And then this work here is also, we're going to talk about it. This is part of the legacy of Kadamawi Haile Selassie, that he has sprung forth so many legendary artists, you know what I mean, that have come to sing his praises to the ends of the earth. So we're going to talk about it because we're going to look at, because remember the DERG, the Western powers, Russia, all of these powers try to suppress the memory and the historical legacy of His Imperial Majesty, slander the king. And look, I mean, this work here is just a testament to how futile it was, because so many rose up, you know, to sing his praises. So that is so beautiful, my brother. And I just want, you can take off slide 1. Big up the DeLion'sVoice network production team. I want to also have the eye talk about just the eye experience generally with Ethiopia, because I want to establish you're not one of the races that stay in the West and you're talking about Ethiopia with all of this verve, and you don't have no experience. This is a brethren from, I know him 20 years ago. This brethren was going back and forth to Ethiopia. I should have wear the shirt. Him have a shirt Ethiopia that, you know, if I even thought of it before now. But talk about your Ethiopia experience just briefly. I want to establish the groundwork before we jump in the reason.
Okay, well, after I reached the apex of photography and reggae, the next part of the journey was Ethiopia. So I started going to Ethiopia around like probably 99. And then I consecutively go every year. Eventually I got married over there to an Ethiopian. But that didn't work out. So, but I gained a lot of experience over there in terms of the culture of the people, and I was accumulating a lot of information about the emperor too. So I met a lot of like older, what they call gashi, older people who had oral experiences, you know, so that enhanced me a lot.
Yes.
In terms of the vision what the emperor had. Because when you go on the ground, then you understand like the issues he had faced in administration.
Yes.
And how he surmount them. So
and we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to go deep into some of what were the grievances of the students, of the soldiers. We're going to touch all of that tonight. Good.
But Ethiopia is the beacon of freedom for the diaspora in general. And I think that we need to have more institutions doing research, so that they can have continuity, because most of the information is come through music.
Yes.
So we need like academic research, scholarly, you know, so that
that's one of the things that we want to do with the Lion Pride on Patreon. We want to make documentaries. We want to go be able to hire researchers, you know, really do high produced documentaries on Ethiopian history, African history, because we have to tell our own story. We can't wait for PBS.
Yes.
And then
that's our patrimony.
Yeah, we
defend the patrimony.
Get it wrong.
It's a very rich heritage, so we must, you know, acquire the ability to sustain it. through symbolism, and even your character. Being Ethiopian is a character.
Yes.
So, because remember now, you're emulating the head of state, and he's the emperor. So, being Ethiopian, as the head of state, your actions reflect him.
Yes.
It's just like a police in uniform. He can't urine on the street because he's disgracing the institution. So like Rastafari in general, or that's our national actions is reflect on the emperor.
Every Rastafari brethren and sister supposed to reflect the emperor and the empress at all times. We are the continuation of the dynasty, global. All right. Can we bring up the first or the second slide? We're gonna look at some pictures, family, and I'm gonna ask Makonnen to describe what we're looking at, and then we're gonna use that to frame the reasoning. So we're gonna do it a little bit different. Again, big up Lion Pride on Patreon. We're gonna use some of the Patreon money. You can see the updates in the platform. We're gonna be doing more of this type of presentation. But talk to us. What are we looking at here with this
okay. This is what we want to discuss. This is September the 12th, when the officers came to the palace, okay, to depose the emperor, as they, So in this photo, we see the emperor sitting at his desk, and in front of them, those are soldiers from different units who established a provisional military administrative committee, commonly known as the DERG. So at this, they came to the palace, and they came and read him a proclamation. But before all of this, I want to turn to two events that led up to this situation. There's a next picture from a next angle where from a different perspective. I don't know if you have it there.
Bring up the next slide.
Okay, so that's two perspectives of what transpired on September the 12th, when these mutinous soldiers and derelict intellectuals went to the palace to dethrone the emperor. But prior to this, there's two significant events that we got to talk about. One, the famine, and two, Asowasen, the crown prince, he had a stroke. That's in 1972. So after he had a stroke, there's a vacuum for succession. So he was taken to Switzerland for medical care. During that time, there's a picture, the third picture.
Yeah, give us the next slide, and we're going to jump back and forth because I want to come forward to these pictures, but give us the next slide.
Okay. Yes. Well, this picture here is when the emperor visits the crown prince Asowasen with his eldest daughter Tenagnawar in Sweden. He had a stroke. So during this time when he had a stroke, also the famine was amplified by a journalist from England, John Dembley, with a BBC film. So
former MI6 agent. Go ahead.
Okay. So this set the stage for a creeping coup. But at this point, when the emperor visited his crown prince Asowasen, he had a draft constitution that was being studied. Could you pull it up?
Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm gonna, the Constitution is very small, so I'm going to read
See,
off.
I can't read it, but
Yeah, I'm
this
gonna
was
read it. Go ahead, talk about it.
okay. It's not legible because it's very small, but probably you could read it. But
Yes.
if you notice it at the top of it, label that that's a draft constitution and the different articles in the constitution, which we can come back to discuss. But one of the particular articles in the constitution was that the succession was no longer to male but to a direct relative. So the foresight of the emperor was already, he had already tried to make change the constitution for the future, because Asawasan was incapable because he had a stroke. So he was making provision for his eldest daughter Tenagna War to succeed. However,
let me just read this draft passage. This is from part 2 of the Constitution, and it's on from the section that says succession to the throne, and it says that
yes,
the Ethiopian crown shall remain perpetually attached to the line of Haile Selassie I, descendant of King Haile Selassie, whose line descends without interruption from the dynasty of Menelik I. This shall not, however, affect the provision of Article 2. And then it says, Article 2 of this provision, the Ethiopian crown shall devolve upon the eldest child of the emperor without regard to sex. In the event that the emperor has no direct descendant, the crown will go to the oldest of his nearest relative. If such a relative is not living, the crown will go to his eldest direct descendant, and if there are none, to his eldest and nearest relative. Among those entitled to the crown shall be reckoned a son or a daughter unborn.
unborn.
Yes, membership in the royal family and the attendant status and duties and other particulars shall be defined by law. So this is revolutionary because it returned Ethiopia to the
A
Sheba,
constitution here.
yeah, you know, and that Asian fullness, you know what I mean, in terms of there was no distinction. But this same constitution also created a constitutional monarchy, which put the decisions of the nation completely in the hands of the parliament. You know, when you read
Yes, from the palace to the parliament.
yes, from the palace to the parliament. So this was revolutionary, and this was what a lot of the
Also, I interject.
elements were asking for. Continue, sorry.
I want you to read Article 1, the head of state, the crown, the emperor.
Okay. The emperor. It says the emperor, Article 7, the emperor is the head of state of Ethiopia and the symbol of the nation's unity and history. His rights and duties are defined in this constitution. Article 8 says, by virtue of his status as head of state, the person of the emperor is sacred and his dignity inviolable. No one shall have the right to bring suit against the emperor. The concerned officials shall be answerable for all national actions of the emperor. And then Article 9 states that the faith of the emperor shall be that of the monotheist Ethiopian Orthodox Church, established in the 4th century according to the doctrines of St. Mark. And then it says, Article 9 goes on to say that in religious services of all religions, prayer shall be offered for the Ethiopian nation and for the emperor. So it's a freedom of religion, but everyone have to send up praise. So this is the every knee shall bow, every tongue confess.
Exactly. But a part of the article is that the person of the emperor is sacred.
Yes.
That's very important because His Majesty was coherently a divine right. He ruled by divine right through his DNA, Solomonic blood.
Yes. And Cushite
It's a
and Cushite
mandate,
through Sheba, because he was a unification of the Cushite and the Israelite through Sheba. You know, because Sheba and the Ethiopians is bringing that Asian Cushite bloodline, and then the Solomonic dynasty is bringing that African Israelite bloodline. You know, and it's the connection of the two ancient bloodlines in one. So in terms of the African world, this is the apex of you know the throne of the monarchies, and he was recognized as such by the other African monarchies. You know, he was a true king of kings. I learned that when I went to the Ashanti Palace, you know what I mean, in Ghana, and I saw that the Lion of His Majesty bestowed a title of Lion of Judah on the Ashanti king at that time, who was Osei Tutu, you know, and they still have the medal that His Majesty gave to their king, and they revere it, and they revere His Majesty in the Ashanti royal court. So, you know, he was really a king of kings. But I want the eye to talk more about taking it from 72, because we want to paint a picture.
Okay, well, from in 1972, these two factors, the drought, which was publicized and create bad press, it foment the students to start to take to the streets. That's in February, with a slogan of "Land to the Tiller," which is a Marxist-Leninist ideology. So they started to rebel in the streets of Addis Ababa. So this put the coup in motion. Apart from them, in Negele, the army mutinied and arrested the commanders. So that mutiny started to spread to the 2nd Division and to different parts of the army. So eventually they arrested what we call the top tier of the military hierarchy. Those are officers above the rank of a major. They all arrested them. So
and they were protesting, you know, the living conditions, the food
and water supply,
water,
raise of pay.
Yeah, raise of pay. So they were legitimate grievances, and I wanna, for those who are not familiar, I have to set the context for these uprisings. I like to say that His Majesty was a victim of its own success, meaning that as you modernize the country, as you lift more people out of poverty, out of abject poverty, because His Majesty is transforming a feudal system, which the people had no rights. They were peasants on the land working for the Rasses. The Rasses could do whatever they want. They could kill people. They
became subjects of the state.
They were subjects, you know what I mean? So His Majesty, by introducing the first constitution in 1931, first thing he did after he assumed supreme power of the realm was to actually limit his own power and to rise the Ethiopian from a peasant to a citizen with rights, but he knew he couldn't fully make it, you know, by vote, because the people would still be manipulated by the nobles of the land. So he created a senate, which all of them, the royal houses could serve as senators. The lower house was selected by the king with his young cadre of trained ministers that he had sent out to get foreign education. So the vision, I want people to understand, because these are the things that the students don't realize when they're rising up. They don't know how far they're coming from. Education was free in Ethiopia right through university. That's how much of the GDP was invested in education. This is unprecedented in most societies. I've talked to Ethiopian elders who tell I they didn't realize how good they had it. They had great food. His Majesty would come and just taste the food in the cafeteria at the school.
He was actually the Minister of Education.
He was the Minister of Education. So, but with that though, you can only modernize so fast. So for every school you build, that means more youths born, people flooding in from the countryside because they hear that the developments in the cities, you have to find housing for them. There's the rate of job. You want to attract foreign investors to start businesses. You're trying to get people not to hoard their money, start businesses, employ people. So think about the functions of running a modern state. This is what Yeshua never had. This is what the prophets of old never had. Enoch, the administration, caring for the mass of the people as the not only head of church, but the head of the military and the head of the civil administration. So he's a victim of his own success of the modernization, and with that, you're going to have shortages of certain basic fundamentals. There was also a lot of corruption, because remember that these independent kingdoms are not just loving His Majesty. It's because of his strength.
They had other issues too. They had the secessionist war going on with Eritrea. They also had a problem in Ogaden, in the desert in Ogaden. So His Majesty had at that time was different fronts. Was different culminate into the revolution as they term it, but it's more treason than revolution, because